Hey everyone, and welcome to the Red Men TV. This is the Uncensored Match Build Up show ahead of Chelsea versus Liverpool 5:30 kickoff, Stamford Bridge on Saturday. Big game for the Reds as they look to get back on track after two successive defeats, obviously one in the Premier League to Palace away from home, and then against Galatasaray in the Champions League in midweek. So a third tough away game awaits. We're going to talk in the first half about Chelsea and where they're at. They've got loads of injuries and suspensions. They've had a bit of up and down form themselves. Second half of the show, we'll look at the Reds, team news, what we do, all that kind of stuff, and then we'll have a little look around the Premier League as well to see what else is going on this weekend with some tasty clashes. But yeah, what a panel I've got with me. I've got Jon and Abi. Wouldn't rather be with anybody else, guys. Thank you so much for coming in. Jon, it's been a while. Thanks for coming back. The Redmen team, I'm sure I've missed you and all our listeners and viewers. And if you haven't, just like to, I'm telling you that. Chelsea away is always a tough game for Liverpool. The record at Stamford Bridge is hit and miss, to say the least. You know, it's been a while since they won it. It was COVID. Thiago's debut. Since then, Thiago's played a couple of seasons for Liverpool and retired and is now a coach. Since the last time we won at Stamford Bridge, there's been different circumstances around them. There's been draws. There was last year's game, which was Liverpool have been in Dubai and Ibiza and stuff on the beach. But yeah, on the back of Crystal Palace away and Galatasaray, when you lose, they're not easier fixtures to have, even a depleted Chelsea side. But Stamford Bridge away is another tough one for Liverpool. Yeah,
it's like it's the atmosphere, isn't it? Like, Galatasaray was a bear pit. Palace is known for being quite vociferous, and obviously Stamford Bridge is the same. And it's when you're going through sort of a rough patch of form, it's like, I suppose there's sort of the school of thought that the next game is the best medicine, if you like, because it's your chance to fix it. But also, like, there's the other side to it of, like, going into like that sort of pressure tie. I'm sure we'll talk about the other fixtures, as you've said, in terms of like the people who are around us in the table and stuff, and like where we might be in the table before kick-off. But it's a difficult, whatever you think of Chelsea in terms of like what they've become in the last couple of years, in terms of like the new owners and the transfer policy and stuff, they're still a formidable team. Again, whether you think much of the Club World Cup or not, it's still a trophy they've won. They've still got a lot of players on the books who are fantastic and who are worth the money they've paid for them. And they can be a dangerous proposition, and they're probably, I would say, the most fortunate team in the league in terms of like they're obviously dealing with a lot of injuries, but they've also got a lot of quality. We don't know how good that quality is because some of these players never play, but they're able to put people in positions who would start for a lot of other teams in the league. So it's a difficult proposition. It's difficult to sort of pick yourself up again, as you say, from like a midweek game. Obviously, you picked up a few knocks, but also to try and hit the ground running against a team that can just set any time they think we'll haul him off after 60 and put someone else on who's just as good.
Yeah, the interesting thing when trying to analyse Chelsea a little bit, Abi, is that like the last 3 games they've had someone sent off. So it's really, really difficult to get a real judge of where they're at. Obviously, they lose at Manchester United when the goalie gets sent off very, very early. They then lose against Brighton at home again, and a centre-half gets sent off. Another player gets sent off in midweek, João Pedro this time, wasn't it? Unfortunately, again, that doesn't carry over, and they just about get past a Benfica side 1-0. Before that, they got well beaten by Bayern Munich. They drew with Brentford. It's hard to get a real grasp on where Chelsea are at, other than the fact that in the Premier League, they've lost their last 2 games. They squeaked through a Champions League game. It's quite difficult at this moment to put your finger on exactly what Chelsea are.
Yeah, it feels like there's a lot of movement in the team. Like they can't really decide who they want to play where. Obviously, they've got new signings in it. Who's going to be that centre-back pairing and stuff like that. I think that's one thing that we've got. I mean, I know obviously Konate's struggling and stuff like that, but having a solid 2 at the back and just knowing who's going to be behind you and stuff like that, it's not really like that at Chelsea at the minute. And obviously Chalobah ends up getting sent off, so they're going to be without him. So it feels like it's a sort of a makeshift team at times where the manager just can't really decide what he wants to do. Obviously the keeper is just shocking. He's one of the people that have been sent off for them in recent times, and I just think he's really poor. So if we can get at him, it just looks as though to me they're not the finished article yet, but people are saying that about us as well. But I think there's lots of players that aren't really sure on their position and where they want to be and stuff like that. And when you've got no Cole Palmer, I think that's a massive thing for them as well. Picking up an injury from him, that can cost you maybe top 5 and stuff like that. I think they're going to be panicking over that. So I don't know if they're just a hot-headed young side and that's why they're getting lots of bookings, but I think that can play a factor into it. But I think there might be a little bit of a lack of discipline there. But like we've said, playing at Stamford Bridge is horrible, and no matter what side you're coming up against, the crowd are going to be angry, the players are going to be up for it, and when we're on the back of 2 losses, this is probably, apart from maybe playing against United or Everton, this is probably the worst game for me that I could imagine that we have to sort of go into, especially at their ground. So it's just one of them really, isn't it? But see, you can't really predict their lineup either because of all the injuries and the suspensions and stuff like that. It's just going to feel very makeshift. That I don't know if that'll go against us in a way, because we're not going to know who's going to be where. Do you know what I mean?
It is going to be tough, like I say. The red cards so early in both of those Premier League games. The one in midweek's different. It's right towards the end, but maybe there is, like you said, a little bit of ill discipline. So at time recording, it's worth mentioning Chelsea's press conference is later today, so no massive updates. But from what we know for a fact Cole Palmer's out, Tosin is out as well, Liam Delap's out, Levi Colwell's out, he's going to be out for a while. Fofana and Andre Santos are 50-50. And you mentioned before, Trevor Chalobah's suspended, he definitely won't be available. The goalie's back from his suspension. So at this moment in time, they've got one centre-half, and it's Hato, who we know is going to be all right, and he's a young kid who's, again, up and down, and that's to be expected. He is very young. If they don't get Fofana back, because he had a concussion, he had a head injury, maybe they have to move somebody there. They put maybe a young lad, I think it was Josh Akipong, who's been touted to be in there, John. There is something there for Liverpool with that goalkeeper, and it looks like potentially a makeshift back two. Let's start with there. That could be hugely significant for Chelsea, being without, again, a lot of their better centre-halves here.
Yeah, you've got to play to their weaknesses, and it's like, ultimately, a win's a win, isn't it? And it's like, I take, at the minute, just in terms of where we're at in the season, I take any win, essentially. But you can only play to your strengths, and our strengths this season have been up front. Ekitike started, obviously, the season in fantastic form, hopefully going off what the manager was saying, that he's fit and available for this, whether it's off the bench or whether he starts. But also you've got Isak, and I think in terms of his return to fitness and sort of getting up to speed with the league, that's probably the one area where I've been not disappointed, but sort of you've seen he's lacking a bit. I've seen him absolutely dominate Arsenal's centre halves when he played for Newcastle and stuff, and they were being touted as the best centre half pairing in the league. And he played the two of them on his own. I think he's struggled a little bit with that so far this season, just in terms of the physicality. And I think, to be honest, a lot of it's probably just general fitness, in terms of the speed, thought and stuff to react to things. But as you say, young centre-back pair, and you're hoping, it's exactly the type of occasion I think he would love to play. And he strikes me as a player who's very, a player for the big stage and likes to score those big goals and stuff, and has all that in his own head. Ekitike definitely has that, as we've seen earlier this season, in terms of how he reacts to scoring. So I think if we try and start fast with that and put that under pressure early, and obviously the bonus option we've got is whatever sort of formulation of that the manager picks, you can always take one of them off on 60 and put the other lad on, and one of them's run them ragged kind of thing. So it's definitely the area I'd be looking at, particularly as well, given that I don't know whether Cucurella will start at the back for them.
Probably, yeah.
But he's obviously historically given Mo a pretty bad time in terms of keeping them under wraps. So I think the centre-half pairing's the way to go. Yeah,
their full-backs are strong. Cucurella's had a good, and Reece James, when he's fit, everyone knows he's really good. It'll be interesting to see what Chelsea do at the centre-half. Badia, Chile, Hato, maybe it depends where that with Fofana. They're not quite where they want to be in terms of their options. You mentioned before, Abs, as well, Cole Palmer missing is massive for them, and he is their real creative spark. They have got loads of forward players, and we don't know exactly. They've got a very strong midfield, but he is their best player. He is their world-class player. I think Cole Palmer's a joke. He's fantastic. He's played well against Liverpool in the past. He's played poorly against us, but I wonder how significant that is. So we know it'll be Enzo will definitely play, and Moises Caicedo, which is very strong. But then Cole Palmer is often the one who has that creative spark to them. It is big that he's out. Yeah,
100%. Cole Palmer's one of the best players in the league. I mean, he didn't finish 8th in the Ballon d'Or list for no reason, but I still think he finished too high there, to be honest.
That Club World Cup's doing bits.
Yeah, considering the Club World Cup basically got him that position, but he's still an absolutely world-class player. And to be without him, he's the main man of that team. Whether you've got players like João Pedro and stuff like that in that team, Pedro Neto's doing really well. I just think losing him is a massive thing, and he's one of those players that can step up in a big game like this. He is, but at the same time, he really struggled. He didn't score for a non-penalty goal for like a whole, I can't even remember how long it was a whole calendar year or something ridiculous like that. So, I don't know. He's one of those players that you sort of have to work around, so maybe they'll manage to do something else without him. I just think having Enzo Fernandez, Caicedo, defensively Caicedo is absolutely unbelievable. He is one of the best number sixes, and he can push forward as well. You know, we've seen him score worldies recently, to be fair, but we've also got Ryan Gravenberch on the other side. I think it will be a bit of a battle of the midfield. I think we're struggling with the likes of McAllister, and players like that just aren't really stepping up to where they should be. You know, Wirtz is trying to carry forward as much as he can, but he is struggling. I just think our attacking force is better than theirs. João Pedro's an unbelievable player, don't get me wrong. I've got him in my fantasy footy against us because we're going to concede, and I think it'll come from there. But, you know, when you've got players like Pedro Neto, and Enzo Fernandez is like, looked great. He's looked great this season, to be honest. He's doing a lot better than I thought he would, to be honest. So there are players to worry about, but I just think when you match up the midfield and the attack and stuff like that, they're there to be got at, to be honest. When you look at their keeper, and like we were saying about the centre-backs and stuff like that, I just think we'd win a midfield battle. I think going forward, we can outscore their forwards. So I don't want to sound too overly confident or anything like that, because I am dreading this game, but I just feel as though the teams on paper, we've got a lot more experience there and we should be able to get at them, but there are great players there that'll be able to score for them.
They've definitely got players who can score a goal or attack you well, and Abby's right, John, we don't know exactly the makeup of their team, or it'll look like he's got loads of options as Maresca. We know almost certainly João Pedro will be up front. Neto probably plays, but then he's got Buenanotte, he's got Estavo, he's got Garnacho. Like there are plenty of options for them to get down the sides. You know, Gittins is relatively new, and he's still another option for them as well. It'll be interesting to see what Maresca does there. My guess is you can probably say Neto and João Pedro are your bankers, and they're probably going to be one up front, one on the right. Left-hand side, it could be Garnacho. Liverpool, if Liverpool are worried at full-back, which, you know, again, hasn't been amazing so far this season, Chelsea definitely have those quick wide players who can cause you issues.
They do, and it's like, I think it's a little bit of one of those for us where there might be a case of sort of like ring the changes, and I think the manager last season was defined almost by his calmness and his, you know, his sort of firm belief in what he was doing, and he did everything confidently. I don't think that's deserted him this season, but I just think obviously given all the upheaval in the summer and the change and stuff, and he's almost trying to make sense of everything that he's got. For me, this would be a game, going back to the fullbacks, this would be a game where I'd be like, right, let's just try and put everyone where they're meant to be last season and just try and work from there. So I'd have Robertson at left back, I'd be starting Bradley at right back, and I'd be putting Szoboszlai back into midfield and just saying, right, you're all going to play where you played last season, and I'll change this from the bench, like maybe piece by piece, you know, and if a goal up, 2 goals up, whatever, come 60, I can start maybe taking some lads off and maybe putting Kerkez in, that kind of thing, to get them more up to speed with the league. It's a difficult proposition, because I think whenever you look at sort of Chelsea's team, like Abby said, like you don't know who's going to play where, other than maybe sort of Fernandez and Caicedo in midfield. Like they might even have Lavia back available for this. Yeah. But also there's the thing of like, they've got such a box of tricks in terms of like, you know, Garnacho, I think, you know, didn't really do his best at United, but there's definitely a player in there, you know, he's a good talent. As you said, like, I think João Pedro was fantastic. I know we were linked with him since when Firmino left and stuff, and we were looking at him maybe for being up front for us. But they've got all these players who do different things. It's not as if like they've just got a big fella up front and 2 wingers, and that's, you know, they change people on and off kind of thing. So it's a game where you need players to sort of have the wits about them, and having that sort of uncertainty for us in terms of having 4 or 5 new signings, and given the week we've just had, I think is obviously what, you know, won't help that. But you know, there's definitely enough, I think, like Abby said, I think in terms of what we've got in the team to cope with that, in terms of like the, you know, the capacity. You know, we've got a lot of really good defenders, we've got some really good hard working midfielders that can cover that ground and stuff. So I think it's, for me, like, just because of my own sort of cautiousness, I think I'd rather be played it safe, but like there's definitely enough up front for Chelsea to cause us problems, I think.
Oh, absolutely, and we'll have a little chat about Liverpool's team in a moment. We're not going to go to ad break, but we are going to do instead is our monthly prize draw. Give me 1 second. Hold that for us, John. This is a shirt signed by former Liverpool captain Phil Thompson, European Cup winning captain. There you go. One of our Red Men Plus legends is about to win this now. This is the prize draw from September. So yeah, if you are one of our Red Men Plus legends, you are in this draw right now. And if you're not, go to redmenplus.com, join us as a legend, and you will be in the prize draw at the end of this month. More to come on what that prize is going to be, but spoiler alert, it's going to be another signed piece of Liverpool memorabilia. Right, you can put it down, Mick, and I'll let you off. So I'm going to spin this wheel. And we're going to find out which of our wonderful subscribers is getting the signed Phil Thompson shirt. Congratulations. Well done to Vegas Red 8. That's going to cost me in postage. Congratulations to Vegas Red 8. The signed Phil Thompson shirt, I'm guessing, is on its way to Nevada. So congratulations to you. You're the best. Thanks for being a Red Men Plus legend subscriber. Hope you're enjoying the content, and yet well done. More information upcoming over the next couple of days on what our next prize is going to be for the end of October prize draw. Yeah, spoiler alert, it's going to be a pretty good one. Shall we talk about Liverpool? Let's talk about Liverpool. Very rarely we have to have this conversation, but I say this, that's a complete lie. We have to have this conversation once a year of when Alisson picks up his yearly injury. Alisson's picked up his yearly injury, Abby. We're awaiting official confirmation. The reports yesterday were maybe 6 weeks. Arne Slot was a bit less committed to that today in his presser. He said he's definitely out, and I'd be surprised if he was out, if he was back for the first game after the break, which is United at home. So it's time for Georgi Mamardashvili to make his Premier League debut. This is why Liverpool have good backup goalkeepers. We can count on Alisson for a lot of things, but once a year he's good for an injury. It's been since his first season, this has been the norm. So it's not what we're not used to. In fact, when we win Premier League titles, we often do it with a spell of Alisson being out of the team. I think we're all pretty confident in Mamardashvili that he's a good goalkeeper. But even someone as experienced as him, who's played for Valencia and he's played internationally and he's seen it all, there is still something about making your Premier League debut. And again, I'll go back to it, Stamford Bridge isn't the easiest of places for that. And Liverpool have needed Alisson this season to keep them in games. Last weekend they could have been out of it. So he is going to be testing Mamardashvili. How are we feeling about him?
The frustrating thing with Alisson is we've literally got the best keeper in the world, but the most injury-prone keeper, and that's just the most Liverpool thing ever. I'm not saying I don't have any faith in Mamardashvili whatsoever, but times like this, you just wish you had Kelleher there, someone that we know is like tried and tested for us and has performed well in the league before and has stepped up when necessary. But we knew this was going to happen. We knew that Mamardashvili was going to have a moment like this because Alisson always gets injured, and every season it's like this will be the year where he just manages to get through without picking up anything. But no, he did. And the frustrating thing is, like you've just said, Steve, he saved us 1 million times this season. Like literally we could have been 4-0 down against Palace. Like we've had some dreadful periods in games where he's had to absolutely save us. And the sad thing was, the other day against Galatasaray, was Alisson and Ekitike were probably the only two players on the pitch that I thought were any good for us, to be honest, because we were performing that bad. And then for both of them to end up going off with an injury was just really frustrating. I'm not going to sit there and pretend I watched loads of Mamardashvili for Valencia, because I didn't. But from what I did see, he did really well right up until the point that we signed him. And then the last season, while he was still on loan, listen, he was taking on a lot of shots because they were really struggling, but he was conceding a lot more, and his actual stats looked, I'm not going to say poor, but they didn't look up to the standard of what we've experienced with Alisson Becker. But obviously, I don't think a keeper like Mamardashvili signs for Liverpool, stays there on loan for a season, and then comes in to sit on the bench for 2 years. So I think that this might be the last season that we have of Alisson, and then Mamardashvili will come in. So he needs time like this, really. And I'm not saying Alisson's definitely going at the end of this season, but that's just the way I look at it, is I can't see a keeper like that committing himself to that much time as a backup goalkeeper, because he is a first team keeper. And from what we've seen, he should be good enough to do that. But it just feels as though to me that he needs games like this. He needs his Premier League debut. He needs to understand aggressive grounds in the Premier League and how scary it can be, and how like the whole Premier League is pretty strong, to be honest, because you can go around Europe and you can see that the top 5 are good and then it can sort of dip. But this is one of those games where it's going to be angry, it's going to be aggressive. He doesn't play out with his feet as well as Alisson from what I've saw, so we're going to have to take that different approach when playing out from the back. There's all those things to consider. But for me, that is an anxiety, because when you know you've got Alisson Becker, who's performed so well all season behind you, I think it puts confidence in the defence in front of him. Do you know what I mean? Because they're confident to pass it back to him. And I don't know what's going on in training with Mamardashvili, and I don't know how well he's looked or whatever. But we knew this was bound to happen eventually, didn't we? So we're just going to have to take it on the chin and see how he does.
In terms of experience, he's about as good as you're going to get off a backup goalkeeper. He's played 130 odd La Liga games. He's played for his country. He's young enough, so he is about as good as you can get. It's time now. They'll test him, of course they will, because why wouldn't he? But yeah, hopefully he's up to the task. Fingers crossed he's doing well as well. Stuart says Mamardashvili for me is better than Kelleher. Maybe not other than Penge. Covine is pretty good at the.
There's just that trust in Kelleher.
Well, we've seen it. It's just,
tried and tested.
In theory, Mamardashvili is better because he should be. He should be a better goalkeeper than Covine Kelleher. But yeah, we're going to start finding out about him this weekend. Let's move on to the back four. Then, John, I'll come to you. Interestingly enough, you did speak about your full backs earlier. It's mad this, because I think the only one you can definitely nail on down to play is Virgil. Canate's had a couple of rough games. The manager mentioned again, he was asked about it in his press, and he said, he gave the ball away a little bit, but he said that he certainly wasn't the only one. The manager could go to Joe Gomez if he wanted to. Although, again, the last time we seen Joe, he wasn't exactly, playing off in the back with much authority either against Southampton. I'm guessing he's going to stick with Canate here.
I think so, yeah. I think Canate's shortcomings we've seen, I think, over 2 or 3 seasons are basically if he's left alone in space and he gets pressed. And I think the balance of the team has been such this season that he's often been in that position where it's just him and Van Dijk essentially at the back defending. I think the fear for me, more so, like I would, in an ideal world, if everything was perfect and everyone was fit, I would probably start Gomez and just be like, I trust Gomez's sort of calmness, if you like, at the minute, and just let's just take Canate out the firing line. The fact that we've only got him as the backup centre half at the minute and that he also covers you at fullback makes me think that I don't want to start him and he picks up a knock. So I think you play through it, yeah. I think you would stick with it, I think, with the two of them at the back. For me, I think it's more just about shoring up what we've got. Like a lot of the build-up for us this season from the back's just been with the two of them and the goalie. If it was me, I'd be looking at maybe making that a 3, just to make it a bit more safe and just saying, all right, if he starts, for example, Robertson at left back, who we've seen play centre half, drop in on there on occasion, we're going to build up with the 3 years at the back and then take it into midfield rather than just having the 2 years and then maybe Gravenberch comes in occasionally. I just think we need, like, a lot of what we did last year, despite what, maybe sort of other fans think, was actually built sort of on defensive solidity. Like, we were so calm in games and, like, we would, get up and score and stuff and maybe 2-0 up and then we just lock it down and that was it. And it was the, considering the sort of 7-8 years we've had as fans, under the previous manager and stuff, it was like the calmest procession to the league I think I've had ever. You were watching games at 60 going, we're going to win this, we're 2-0 up and we're sound. Getting back to that, I think, will help everybody. I think, I can understand now we've ended up where we've ended up in terms of, like, obviously the new signings, and obviously we need to look at the future a little bit in terms of getting new players in and stuff and everything that happened over the summer. But I just think just giving everyone that chance to reset at the minute and just being like, look, it's a big game. We all know it's going to be, there might be like the odd issue because of the atmosphere and stuff. But let's just start the lads who started at the back last year. Don't put Szoboszlai at right back. I think he's been fantastic there. But, put Bradley at right back, put Szoboszlai back where he belongs in midfield, because I think we've struggled for legs in there, and just have a bit of a reset. Unfortunately, as we've sort of spoke about, we haven't got Alisson. So we've already got one change there, whatever happens in terms of the back 5, but I would try and keep it to a minimum if it was me.
The full-back thing's interesting now because, like you say, in theory, it should be Kerkez against the pacey winger, because I think, Robertson, that's where Robertson struggled a little bit last year and here at the start of this year when he's come on sometimes. But yeah, Kerkez has been a little bit up and down, it's fair to say. Robbo's been pretty good when he played. I still think he'll stick with Kerkez, to be honest with you. I'd be surprised if he didn't, but what do you think he'll do?
I don't know. I think it was up to me at the minute. I'm wanting to stick with Robertson because I just want that stability, and he has looked better and more consistent than Kerkez. But like you've just said, coming up against pace, Robertson's just struggled. We've seen it for the last year and a bit, to be honest, that Robertson's starting to lose his pace and stuff like that. He gets a little bit rash and he loses his head a bit at times like that when he's struggling. And I feel like in a game like this, Kerkez probably fits, but at the same time, Kerkez is also being rash with tackles. He's going down quite easy. There's stuff like that in Kerkez's game that just looks quite immature. He doesn't look like the player that we saw at Bournemouth last season, and I don't know if that's just the side that he's in. There's a lot of change, there's stuff like that, but at the end of the day, you've got to start in this game, you've got to start your best player in every position, and it probably is Kirkers in the long run. I don't know. It just feels like a risk to me. My brain's telling me Robertson. Like, just go for a solid player there. Go for Robertson. But then I don't know. Arne Slot's ruthless as well. If you have a bad game, that's my thing on Konate is if Alisson doesn't get injured, and like obviously we have that change there, I think he goes for Gomez. But I think because that injury's happened, they've gone, right, we're just going to have to stick to those two centre-backs. But Konate is absolutely getting on my nerves, to be honest. If it was up to me, it's such a shame that Leone got an injury, because I think that his opportunity would have come by now with how poorly Konate is playing. And like you've just said, maybe Robertson, Konate and Virgil might be a bit more stability, to be honest. Actually, I'll go for Robertson, but I think it'll be Kirkers. If it was up to me, I think
it will be. And then he has got a decision to make it right back. I'll stick with you, because he's got three options really. Szoboszlai can go there and he can do something in midfield. He's got Bradley, he's got Frimpong. My gut again is telling me probably goes to Conor Bradley, but he has used Szoboszlai there. You know, he used Szoboszlai at right back and Frimpong at right wing the other day. The formation's changed a couple of times, so it is quite difficult. Do you agree with John, though, that you're getting Don back into midfield now, or are you going one more time at right back before the break?
Yeah, I think, like I've said before, I'm tried and tested for this game. I'm like, you go for your very best.
So Conor?
Yes, Conor. It's Conor for me, 100%. I think Szoboszlai needs to be back into that midfield. To be honest, the midfield for me, which I know we will come on to, has got to be McAllister, Szoboszlai and Gravenberch. And I know Wirtz is probably, I think he's created the most chances. I've seen that stat come out, and I think we have all been a little bit harsh on him, and I've been guilty of that as well. But for me, it just feels as though we've got to go for that tried and tested, the best midfield in the league last season. I know McAllister's struggling, but I think we just have to go for it. It's Bradley for me. He's the best defensive right back that we've got at the club. I think it's just too much in this game to put that on Szoboszlai. And Frimpong, he just doesn't fancy him, and neither do I at the minute either. He's just far too attacking for a game like this. Maybe in a game at home, you know, where he can be unleashed a little bit. But there's something about Frimpong where he looked really good against like Southampton, for example. You know stuff like that. But he's not strong enough. He's not defensive enough for a game like this. He's more of a at home right back for me, and it just doesn't look as though Arne's fancying him there either, to be honest.
Even at the game, he was better. Yeah. He was better attacking. Yeah. You're right. Yeah. He wasn't brilliant.
Yeah.
I'll give my opinion, and I'm the host. But like, I would struggle to leave Wirtz out for McAllister at the moment. I think of all our players who are having one, he might be McAllister's up there, and at least there are options. Ibu's definitely having one, by the way, and I agree. But I'd be absolutely fine if it's Gomez. I think with Alexis, he looks miles off it, and I understand your point of going back to basics. And if he was in good form, if he was in good form, I'd agree. He looks
that's fair enough.
He looks miles off it. I'm with you either on Gravenberch, and I would put Szoboszlai in midfield, but I would go with Florian Wirtz again.
But Cody's not looking good on the left wing either, so you can argue to put Wirtz there.
Yeah, you could. It isn't the Liverpool's issue. There's a lot of lads who just aren't in great nick at this moment in time. I don't know, John. What are your thoughts on midfield? Because And Alexis McAllister in particular, there's been a lot of talk. Is he injured? He had a long layoff. He didn't have a proper pre-season. He's just become a father, hasn't he? So congratulations for that. It hasn't just looked quite right. And I don't know if you just say to him, listen, not today. Go and get 2 more games into your international duty. Come back a bit fitter and fresher. I don't know, because he's usually your reliable 7 out of 10. He'll do his job for you, and he just hasn't been that. Whereas I know Wirtz, like again, there's a lot of chat about Florian Wirtz. I thought second half in particular against Galatasaray, you start to see bits more about him. It would be a big call to leave him on the bench. I don't know where Arne's at, and where are you at with this?
It's a difficult one, because I agree. I think the other two picked themselves, Gravenberch and Szoboszlai, no question.
Agreed.
I think.
And Curtis, by the way, there's a few people in the comments mentioning Jones as an option here as well.
I was going to say, for me, it's more of a McAllister-Jones conversation, I think. I've got no beef with Wirtz. I'm very much in the camp that he's a fantastic player. I did do a bit of digging on him in terms of his numbers and stuff, because I was a bit worried. On the eye test, if you like, he wasn't passing the eye test for me at the time, but having done a bit of digging and seen some of the things that he does that maybe you don't always see on the television camera, I think he's doing fine. I think it's a hard one for me, because I think like McAllister is that weird sort of X-factor player, if you like, in terms of like, he's not the quickest, he's not like the biggest in the challenge or whatever, anything like that. and he's not necessarily like the flashiest player either, but there's just something intangible about him. The player, in a weird way, he always sort of reminds me of his Modric, you know, where I look at him and I just sort of think, like, I could never define why you're such a good footballer, but you're just really great at, like, sort of everything, you know.
Yeah.
And he was that for us last year. The other two lads obviously contributed in different ways in terms of pace and, like, ball recoveries and stuff, but I just think, as you say, he's had such an indifferent start to the season that it's hard to sort of justify him. I don't know whether you try and play him through it, because obviously, as you say, we don't know whether he's carrying a knock, and whether it's something that they're just trying to get him through and, you know, working on it, or whether it's just something, as you say, related to fitness. I think there's a case, again, that's just me being cautious, to start Jones. I think the cameos he's had this season where he's played, he's looked fine. You know, he seems to be, like, you know, in terms of the, you know, making changes, he's the one who's, like, the obvious change in terms of his fit and stuff. I think the question for me then becomes sort of later in the game, if you're looking to change things, would you bring on Vert or would you bring on McAllister? Which
not a bad option to have, is it?
You're sort of back at the same thing, do you know what I mean? I think where we've struggled this year a lot in terms of the new arrivals, beyond everyone trying to settle in, really is pace. I think, you know, where we were great last season was that we had obviously Diaz on one flank, being able to sort of drive with the ball and hold up players and stuff, and he could dribble. Mo was in the form of his life, you know, and then whoever we had up front at the time, same sort of thing, and obviously he had all that energy in midfield. We've gone from that to essentially just Ekitike, and then Szoboszlai was the main engine of the midfield, and he's been playing at right back. So there's been this sort of void in the middle of the team, and you've essentially had Gravenberch playing midfield on his own at times. Trying to fill that in, I think, will help a lot with people like McAllister. So yeah, the very long-winded answer to your question, mate, is I would start Jones,
okay.
But if he picked any of the three, I think if he puts the other lads with them, I think it'll be okay.
There you go, Redmen TV, summing it up perfectly for you. Majority decision of McAllister, Jones or Vert. We're all one each, so let you decide. Let us know in the comment section what your midfield three would be. Interestingly enough, let's move into the forwards then. Chiesa and Ekitike both set to train today, and my guess that means they're both maybe available. We'll find out if that means they can start, or I don't know yet, honestly. Again, rightly not giving too much away on those ones. With that being said, then Abi, it feels like probably going to go up front Alexander Isak to start. You guess, obviously Ekitike starts in midweek and then gets, apparently it was just a bit of cramp, which is great news, but Liverpool will be cautious there. Are we looking at Isak with Gakpo and Salah either side of them then?
There's no way you drop Salah again, I don't think. But Salah is not on good form whatsoever. He's getting completely shut out of every single game that he's in. He's not managing to get past players at all. And I don't know if it's just a tactical thing that managers are doing now, where they realise Salah's lost a tiny bit of his pace, tiny bit of his creativity, and they're just putting three players on him at once and just deciding, just shut Mo out of the game, don't let him do anything, and then we struggle, basically, when you haven't got Mo Salah playing on form. Alexander Isak needs to prove himself at Liverpool now, and, we had, 4 touches and 2 passes the other day when he come on, and that's not good enough. At the minute, the most informed attacker that we've got is Ekitike, and I think if it was just cramp for Ekitike, he trains today, I'd start Ekitike. Yep. I think you've obviously got to go for Cody Gakpo, but for me, with my midfield, I'd probably go for Wirtz on the left, but I do think he's struggling there. I don't think that's his best position, but I don't know if that's just because I want his creativity on the pitch, and Cody Gakpo's really frustrating me because every single time he gets the ball on the left, he just tries to cut it around the box and then have a go. And I'm getting a bit frustrated with Cody at the minute. He started the season really well, and now it's just started to dip and dip. But if I could get Ekitike starting that game instead of Alexander Isak, I am starting Ekitike, to be fully honest. But I want to see more from Isak, and this might be that game where we finally get to see him involved. We finally get to see him finally do better. I know he has scored for us, but it's against Southampton in the cup. That's not what I expected. Do you know what I mean? I think everyone in the media and stuff like that were talking about it as if poor Ekitike, he's got absolutely no chance now. They've signed Alexander Isak. Alexander Isak will go straight in. But now I think Ekitike, apart from taking his shirt off and making a stupid decision, he's proven why he probably should have that. He should have that spot. And when we were without him, we looked lost. Yeah. Even when we did have brilliant attackers like Mo Salah and Isak and that on the pitch. So if I can get Hugo Ekitike in there, I am. But if he's only trained once and
It's tough, and I'm with you, by the way. I agree. I would start him if there was no injury concern, but that's where we are. Isak's record, for what it's worth, is pretty good against Chelsea. He's got, I think it's 4 goals in 6 games against them all told. Like he's done well against them, but different time and different place. There is a world where he can move on the left. We saw that in Galatasaray, but again, when there's injury issues around, that can make things a little bit difficult. Other than that, Chiesa again out and only just coming back. We'll see where he's at. So it feels like we're probably edging towards Gakpo, Salah, and then depending on Ekitike's fitness, which it could be worse. I'm just fancying Isak this weekend. I think I'm having him.
I'm going for it.
I think he'll score. Is my tip. I think. Yeah, because kick the ball to him, please. And against those centre backs, against those centre backs, he might get a bit of joy in that goalkeeper. But we'll touch on that in the end. We'll get your score predictions. Let us know your score predictions as well, guys, who are watching along live with us right now. Because we have been usually we can pick an 11.
How indecisive we are.
No, that's right. That's kind of shows you Liverpool that we are all over the place because usually your bankers are not playing well. And the signings, none of them have, again, Ekitike aside, who's got an injury doubt, haven't really hit the ground running. It's really hard to pick your inform 11 will still have probably some lads who are out of form because there aren't 11 of them in good form over the last couple of weeks in particular, but fingers crossed that changes. Right then, get your thinking hats on as we start considering score predictions and stuff like that. Quick look around the Premier League then. Another busy weekend of Premier League action starts tonight actually with Bournemouth versus Fulham. I won't watch a second of that. Leeds host Tottenham in the early kick-off, which is tasty. I want to talk very quickly to you, John Crabbe, and I do comments on Ruben Amorim really because you haven't been here for a while. Sunderland are one of the most informed teams actually in the Premier League. They're having a really good go at it. If Sunderland go to Old Trafford and win, is this fella sacked? And are Sunderland going to go there and win because I think they've got every chance of doing that to Manchester United?
It's difficult. I mean, I've seen the reports in the press lately that apparently he'd walk away before he was sacked, like he'd quit. Whether that's the truth or not, I don't know. I think
that's very much. You want to dump me? I'm dumping you anyway.
that feels very like we haven't really got any money to pay you if you leave. Like, so can you go?
Yeah, just say, mate. We can't afford. Can you just leave us alone? We can't afford you to go. Just get out of my life.
No, I just think it's so weird because he's like. In a lot of ways, like I actually quite like him. Like I think his honesty's been so refreshing about what's going on.
I love him. I think he's doing a great job.
I think he's fantastic. Yeah, but I just think as well, like you see him in press conferences and just generally his like sort of demeanour and how he is, and it's so clear. He's like saying to the world, like, look, I don't want to do this. Like, can someone just can you sack me, kind of thing. But it's got to come to a head.
He's desperate to get sacked.
He's so desperate to walk away, but you've got to think like it must come to a head at some point. I mean, a lot of people sort of give it sort of 7 games, which is like a fifth of the season, and like we're at that point now. We're about to go into an international break. The fact that they've got some big games coming up after the international break might mean that they might go, actually, now we'll give it a few more games. But I just think like, what are the promising signs? If you like, I think the fact that they won the other week. I know it was obviously late on and stuff, and like they'd had men sent off, and Chelsea had men sent off and stuff, but maybe buys them a little bit of time. But I just think, what are the sort of the promising signs, if you like, of sort of what he's done? They've invested heavily, despite what he said in the summer, and like they don't look to me like a coherent team. Now, behind the scenes, they might be going, okay, well, we know we're not going to be coherent. Like if this was Liverpool, say, for example, you'd go, we know we're not coherent because it's a new manager, a new season, and we're transitioning to a different system. But United have never had that sort of structure, post Ferguson. So I just think it'll trundle along until it's a point where it's untenable, and I think that point is sooner rather than later. The thing they've got is I just don't know who they get in because
Gareth Southgate, obvs.
Well, I think that.
I think there'd be protests outside Old Trafford if they bring him in.
I can't wait for it. By the way, Sunderland are going to beat them this weekend. But I probably shall. Sunderland they don't concede goals, and Man United can't score anyway.
No.
I think Sunderland beat them like 1-0, a set piece or something, and I think that might be the end of him. But we'll find out at the weekend, of course. Arsenal West Ham is an interesting one, Abi, because John kind of hinted at it earlier. There's a chance Liverpool go into their game a few hours later. No longer top of the league. Arsenal should beat West Ham. It's a different West Ham. It isn't Graham Potter's West Ham, who would have got absolutely wiped out by Arsenal. They went there and tried to play footy and got made a show of. I mean, West Ham had the worst defending set piece side in the league, and Arsenal are the best at them. Nuno's had he's had since Monday, where he actually did quite well against Everton, considering only just taken over. They looked a bit more like a normal football team. It'll be interesting to see if West Ham get Nuno'd, or if Arsenal are just too strong for them. He hasn't had that much time to really work his magic at West Ham yet.
It's a shame this fixture's come now right into the early part of his career at West Ham, to be honest. I think if this was in a couple of months, I'd have had a little bit more faith. But I think if you just expect West Ham's team to straight away be able to sort of fit into his thing and move away
and
from...
defend corners.
Exactly. Like you've just said, it's a bit of a nightmare, to be honest, when it comes to set pieces in this game, because you just know that's where Arsenal thrive. And Arsenal, like you've just said, they're going to have that mindset of we can go top of the league here and put a lot of pressure on Liverpool before they go to Stamford Bridge. So that's a bit of a sickener for me, to be honest. It's not one of those games that I have much faith around. But like you've said, I haven't seen the highlights, or I didn't watch the whole game of them against Everton. But from what I've heard, they did quite well. Yeah, I think when you've got a player like Jarrod Bowen in your side, you're always going to be able to create something.
West Ham did lose. So West Ham won last year, didn't they, this game? I think it was Bowen who scored the goal.
Yeah, but it's a completely different outlook for them now.
He was bossing West Ham, by the way, the left back. He was amazing against Everton today. Is it Diouf or Diop? I think it was. He's like a running machine. He was unbelievable. I'd love to see a little bit. He's like just bombing up and down that flank, but you are right. It's
just that I have a lack of faith at the minute.
They'll just score off a corner.
Yeah.
That's what's going to happen. They're definitely going to score off a corner, and that'll be that. Brentford hosting City on Sunday at R4 is an interesting one, John, because early on this year I was really worried for Brentford. It looked like a shambles.
I had them down to get relegated.
I remember making a prediction like they're not going to win any of the first. I'd watched them like twice and thought these are a shambles. They've kind of got their heads together. If you're speaking about like set pieces, that's them. Listen, they're not brilliant. They've won 2 out of 6 games. They're doing, but they did beat Manchester United the other day. If City, and I saw the other day, Erling Haaland looking a bit pissed off in his interview. Like he's like, I'm scoring all these goals. Can we win some games, please, lads? Like if City are vulnerable at the back, Brentford will test them at that. Haaland being in such great form always guarantees City at least a goal. But Brentford will be definitely targeting those centre halves and seeing what he can get any joy out of it.
Definitely, and I think the great thing with Brentford as well is that they play to the final whistle. You know, they're not a team who go 2 down in the first 20 and go, right, well, we're just going to cover up. Do you know what I mean? Like they're a team who will keep playing. So even if they are a goal or 2 down, you know, and it might be the 80, 90 minute, you could see that game finishing 2-2 kind of thing.
Forza, Jordan Henderson, Sepp Vandenberg, Fabio Carvalho, Kevin Kelleher's Brentford Bees, yeah.
I was going to say all the ex-Liverpool players who do it, but I think City's problem at the minute, you know, beyond all sort of the obvious thing that we've got going on, that they've got a lot of new signings, is that sort of behind Haaland, they haven't got anything. Like, you know, that Reinders lad look good, who they got from Milan. And some of the other lads who they've signed in flashes have looked great, but they haven't figured out a structure yet of how to put it together. And I don't know if that's because it's new signings, or because of, obviously, they've got our former assistant manager there as well, who's changed how they play a bit. I think Brentford could get something from it. I think, you know, Brentford, as you've just said, in terms of the players, they've got a really good goalie. They've got an experienced head in the middle of the pitch who knows how to see out games and stuff and knows how to manage things, in Jordan Henderson. So I wouldn't be surprised if, like, we're sat here, you know, as you say, later on, and it's like, oh, actually, yeah, they've dropped points again, and it's you know, just the 3rd or 4th or whatever in the league. You know, I've only picked up a point at Brentford, and it's a bit of a question mark going into the international break.
I mean, they'd be delighted to be 4th to 7th at the minute.
7th league.
They take 4th at this moment in time. Right, then we'll go back to Liverpool at Chelsea. Some score predictions. Ryan thinks Liverpool win 3-2. Stuart thinks Liverpool win 3-1 with Salah and Vert being the goal scorers. Let's Go is a bit less optimistic, saying I don't see us winning. I reckon us getting a draw at best. Cheer up. Let's go, literally, follow your name. Let's go. Jai says the usual frustrating performance, but coming out with a 1-1 draw. Oh, I should have read that. I should have read the good ones first. Put me in a bad mood. I think they're going to win. I'll go first. I think Liverpool will win 2-1.
I agree. I think we'll win 2-1. I can't see us not conceding, like Abi alluded to earlier, but equally, I just think they've got they're missing more than we're missing at the minute, and I think if we play it smart, we'll win. Yeah,
absolutely. That's kind of it. Their goalkeeper and centre half is what's giving me a little bit more encouragement. If it was Chelsea at their fit and firing best, and if they had Cole Palmer, Liverpool coming off this week, I would be more concerned. It's still hard. I'm not nailing this one as a win, but I'm just edging us in front.
I think 3-1, and we'll get one. Like our third one will be quite late on, I think, just to finally put the game to bed while we all be dead nervous thinking Chelsea are going to equalise, because Liverpool just love to stress us out, don't they?
That's the heart attack Reds in full effect once again. Abi and Jon, thanks very much. Thanks all you guys watching or listening to the show. Very quickly over the weekend then, there will be a watch along join Paul, Chris and Dan. They'll be live from around about 4:10 with the team news and build up. Keep an eye out on the channel as well. Chloe is going to be down at Stamford Bridge, so there'll be some content coming from there as well, or hopefully with Chloe in a much more better mood than she was on Tuesday when she was less than happy in the studio and watching that watch along, it is fair to say. And like I mentioned before, do go and check out Redmen Plus if you want even more content. There are some big things that we're about to announce soon, but like I say, if you join up as a legend as well, you can get in those signed shirts competitions, which is always worth your while. So yeah, thanks very much to the guys, thanks everyone for watching or listening, and yeah, we'll catch you on Saturday afternoon for the game. See you there.